So basically what this is, it was a Q&A that was with the lead game designer, Sergey Kolkanov. And there was also another guy who I believe was a translator. I'm sure they'll introduce themselves. And then obviously Mike and Oxy doing it. Now, I'm going to commentate during it. Just have a bit of a chat about some thoughts said. And why not have a look? It's only about an hour long, so it shouldn't take too long, but we'll see as it goes.
To go.
Can I just do this?
And
yeah, okay.
This is a button. There we go. Hello, Alexander. Hello, Sergey. Hopefully you are doing just fine on this fine evening.
So, first things first, right? This setup is awful. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how rushed this was. I don't know how long they had to put this together. But obviously this is done through Discord, if you can't tell. And it's pretty jank. The easy ways to fix this, you crop the image up to Sergey and Alvan, and then you leave the rest of it black, or you put an Enlisted thing there, like you put a PNG of the Enlisted logo. You also need to bring down the two cameras because it's actually cutting off the top of them, and it's just it's all balked. You can also see the mouse as well, which is another issue. But yeah, it's a bit rough. But I suppose the main thing about the presentation is the talking. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like, but at the same time, it would be nice if it was a little bit better.
Okay, so
like the main center of the frame shouldn't be Mike's face with the little decal. it should be the two guys or an Enlisted logo, right? Like it looks scuff.
Let's once again in the chat we are going to be talking to the lead game designer Sergey Kolkanov, who you can see on the right side. And we have the help of Alexander Tolkash as well to provide some translation and some additional insights.
Yes, and first thing to stress is Sergey is not only head of our game design, but also is a producer of the project. So he's the man to ask the most important questions today.
So this is the there's a ton of empty space, right? And that's the problem. So Sergey is the man. He is the one with all the marbles. He's the one that matters the most when it comes to this. He is basically BVVD, but for Enlisted. So makes his word is in effect law when it comes to this stuff.
And welcome everybody on the stream.
Yes, thank everyone for being here.
So how are we going to proceed?
Unlucky Oxy. Oh, starting off bad with a bit of a cut, but that's okay. Oh my god! Like, I'm wondering if Oxy's mic was turned on in this moment. When I watched this the first time, it seemed like to me that it wasn't a latency thing, and his mic was just not on. But I might be wrong about that.
I suppose.
Okay, we are going to pick some questions from the chat, of course, but we do have a few things that we've been picking up from.
I mean, the apartment is dope that the guys sat in. Like that looks really nice. Beautiful plant, nice TV with everything else. Looks good.
The general, most asked questions that the community has been dropping us. So we can actually start with one of them. One of the main questions that has always come up a lot is if Enlisted will come to the last gen consoles. Right now, we have Enlisted support on PC.
Right. Don't call them lesser consoles. Old gen. Or pre-gen. Or before current gen. Calling them lesser gives like an impetus that they are, what's the word? Not worse, but like they're like sub compared to the other ones, which they are, but you don't want to give that impression, which is a bit of a problem.
On PS5 and on Xbox Series X/S, but people want to know if it will also come to the last gen consoles. Maybe you can give some insight on that.
Wait, is he saying last gen or is he saying lesser? Okay, fair enough. He might be saying last gen, but it might be an accent thing.
Сергей, вопрос.
Да, в данный момент таких планов нет. То есть мы пробовали портировать нашу игру на консоли прошлого поколения, но из-за обилия солдат, техники, больших карт и всего этого происходящего одновременно и рядом, в итоге не получается. То есть не получается создать стабильного FPS, достаточного для того, чтобы зарелизить на прошлом поколении.
Okay, thank you. So the problem is that unfortunately Enlisted is filled with infantry, ground vehicles, aircraft, everything's fighting together. And unfortunately, however we tried, it was impossible to ensure proper visual quality and proper FPS of at least 30 frames per second on the last gen consoles. So unfortunately, we do not see how to do it, at least at the moment.
I mean, the consoles are like 7 or 8 years old at this point, so it's really not a surprise that they've struggled to make it run at a stable frame rate. We've obviously had the classic last year, I can't remember what it was called, Cyberpunk, that came out, obviously, and it wasn't exactly great, so that's a bit of a problem. One thing I do want to note, the guy on the top left, how he has like a mic that lights up, that to me is just so weird. Like, I don't know, it's kind of putting me off, but that's just a personal thing.
The hardware simply is too outdated to support the kind of vision we have for this game, correct?
Yeah. And I see one question also appear in the chat, actually. Sergey, so the question people always asking, if we are going to add more campaigns as Enlisted is developed.
So before they answer this question, one thing I find really weird about the interview, right? So Sergey, you've got Mike and Oxy who are like asking the questions. But then also the other guy is reading the chat as well, so he butts in with questions. So you technically have 3 guys asking questions, and then you have one guy answering. But the thing is, they never actually ask him the questions in Russian, but he answers them in Russian. So he's either reading them in English and can understand them, or somebody, a 5th party, is translating them to Russian and sending them to him. Which it just seemed like, as I said, like the planning for this just seems a little bit skew with when it comes to how this actually came out.
Beyond those 4 which they
Sweet
can
dreams,
already see in the player client.
Да, на данный момент мы, соответственно, рассказывали игрокам только о наших 4 готовящихся компаниях, но кроме этого...
Another thing they do through this is show pre-alpha footage. We're in OBT now. Like, surely we have some updated footage. I know Mike and Oxy have been streaming the game. Could they have not used... I don't know whether they record their footage in the background while streaming. I mean, I sometimes do that. I know a lot of other people who do that. Even, why not just create like montages of just content creator footage, right? Like, technically it's your game. You have license to do so. So just take that and use that instead of pre-alpha footage, which is way out of date at this point. Like, it's at least a year out of date, or maybe at least 8 months out of date. So why? Like, why are we using this footage?
Мы собираемся поддерживать игру достаточно долгое время, и у нас есть планы на расширение, серьезное расширение количества компаний в дополнение к тому, чтобы расширять текущие.
So basically the answer is yes, we plan to maintain Enlisted for a long time, and of course it means we'll ensure amount of new content being released. So there will be new campaigns in the game, and of course we have plans and we have ideas about how to go further beyond those 4 campaigns you can already see. Hopefully World War II had a lot of interesting and interesting historical parts which we could use to create campaigns with.
which is, you know, obviously fine. So they're focusing on the World War II stuff. You know, I mean, I would rather focus on the 4 campaigns that we have instead of new ones, but I understand people want, they just constantly want new content. Like when it comes to War Thunder, I'm so used to this. Like we'll literally have an update, and then the next day or even that day, people will be asking what will be in the next update. It's such a weird thing. But it is good that they're not just content with the 4 campaigns and they're pushing past that. There are many cool campaigns in the Second World War, and I'm sure they'll represent them well.
Вторая мировая война очень большая, она содержала в себе огромное количество разных сражений, больших и не очень, а также огромное количество разных ТВД, поэтому можно сказать, что мы только начали.
Yeah, so the World War II had so many different fights, so many different areas where war actually went on, so many different battlefields that we are sure we have a lot of content to cover as Enlisted is being developed.
Very true.
Спасибо.
That's actually very good that you're touching on that, because that's again one of the questions that people have been asking a lot. Because right now we of course have the
James
Moscow
Ginger,
Battle,
have a nice
Battle
rest.
of Moscow 1941 campaign. We have Normandy 1944. We now have recently as well added the Berlin 1945 campaign, and one that is actually planned for the near future is also Tunisia. And people, of course, have been asking if there's going to be more. What's our plans? So it's very nice to hear that. Do you perhaps have any specific plans for? Is it going to be mostly just the most well-known campaigns, like the Battle in the Pacific, for example, or is there a chance we could see some more unknown battles, like for?
I really hope they don't just make a Battle of Pacific campaign. I really hope they segment it into different eras. Because the Battle of the Pacific, it did happen over many years. There were many really good battles with many different weapons, many different variations. I really hope they don't just do like Battle of this, you know, area. That's kind of like, so with like Battle of Tunisia, right? The Battle of Tunisia was a huge battle, right? You know, it was fought over many years and many different sets of technology, which is why I'm interested to see how they're going to do it, because of the fact that you can technically have, you know, level 1 people facing level 26 people. So the fact is you're going to have crazy leaps in technology that people are going to have to fight, and I think it's going to be really rough for them. Where I think it would be much better maybe doing Operation Torch or, you know, something like that, or maybe breaking it up into different operations instead of overall battles, because otherwise you're going to have real problems with the balancing.
Смогут нам предоставить разные сражения. Соответственно, дальнейшие планы, они зависят еще и от этого. То есть мы хотим покрыть как можно больше с точки зрения геймплея, с точки зрения разного оружия и техники.
I'm also going to put it out there. There's literally no point in Oxy being in this. Like, what's the point? Like, so far he's in 6 minutes. All he said is, you know, being cut off. Like, he actually does a really cool series right now on Mondays where it's called, like, Tea with Oxy or something. It's basically where he asks, like, or he gets asked community questions and then he answers them. That to me is the content that Oxy should do. It's really good. Stuff like this, just leave it to Mike. Like, you know, he can read a chat and find questions from it. And you already have 2 people looking at the chat for questions, and do we need a third? We don't even need 2. Like, why overcomplicate it?
Okay, so very interesting answer to the question that our goal is not only to show the full historical scope of the war, but also to choose periods of battles which would add to gameplay and add some interesting content to the game. So when choosing new campaigns, we also look there so that each campaign features something unique and is interesting for players to play.
Very good, very good.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah.
So we have another question from, I think, Psy Mystic. Will there be more stuff in the Battle of Moscow campaign? I guess in other campaigns as well. So I imagine retroactively adding more content to the older campaigns, either at the end of the current campaign level, maybe earlier on. Are there any plans to introduce more content in the older campaigns?
Да, мы планируем расширять.
The conflict in Tunisia was 6 months, you're correct, the Tunisian campaign, but the actual battle for Tunisia could easily be seen as a lot longer.
Текущей кампании. То есть то, что мы сейчас имеем, это первые 26 уровней. Это далеко не все.
They're a duo? Yeah, but how are they a duo? I'm not bullying Oxy, I'm literally saying he's better used in other areas. Like, that's it. Or, you could have it the other way around. Just have Oxy where Mike is. Right? There's no point in them in this. There's no point in this Q&A for having two of them. You know? That's it.
Что мы планируем для Москвы, Нормандии, для остальных компаний. То есть дальнейшие планы не только включают в себя добавление новых компаний, понятное дело, это не будет происходить каждый патч. Между этими большими обновлениями с новыми компаниями мы будем добавлять контент в те компании, которые уже в игре.
So basically the answer is again yes. Our goal is not only to create new campaigns as we develop Enlisted, but also to add content to those campaigns which are already
That's really
there.
nice to hear.
And current campaign levels which are now above 20, I think 26 was mentioned, are not the final. So there will be levels added to campaigns, and of course meaning new content being added to them. So yes, they will keep growing as well.
That's good.
And I see one interesting question on another channel. If we are going to
see, once again, like, why just have like two people here. This is so disorientating.
Include multiple playable factions in the same campaign, like for example having Italy and Germany fighting on the same side, for example. So, Sergey, what about the multiple playable factions?
В данный момент мы рассматриваем такую возможность, но не как добавление третьей сражающейся стороны. То есть, условно говоря, сейчас у нас есть союзники и ось. Мы собираемся придерживаться этого в новых кампаниях, но внутри одной страны могут встречаться разные страны, например, Германия и Италия, или Британия и США. То есть, да, такие планы есть.
So we do have plans to add different countries and sometimes to mix different countries in one campaign, but meaning that there are no three sides to the campaign. So campaigns would always have two sides of the battle, but one of them could feature different nations and different squads of those nations. And I see one interesting.
This is good. You know, obviously they're not going to do like a 1v1v1. You know, they're going to mix and match. It was actually kind of sad to me with the invasion of Normandy. When that was released, every squad on the Allied side is American. For me, the invasion of Normandy should be seen as one of the most important and also gigantic and most successful invasions of a country that has ever been. And it was done by multiple nations, it was done by multiple armed units, and to see only one of them really represented in the campaign is very sad. It would be lovely to see other nations represented in the invasion of Normandy, so it doesn't give this false picture that it was only America that invaded France. Which I understand, you know, they obviously wanted to focus a lot on the American side of things. The American market for Enlisted is very important because normally Americans spend a lot of money on things. But at the same time, it would have been really nice to see others represented. And hopefully in the future, with what they said before, where they're adding in or going to add in future stuff for current campaigns, hopefully they add in more.
question again on YouTube. Is there ever going to be a realistic or simulation battles which play out closer to other games which have more realistic play style? So what about going to some realistic or simulation style?
На данный момент, если сравнивать, например, с War Thunder, у нас...
This was a really dumb question, by the way. I don't even understand what it's supposed to mean. Like, is there going to be more realistic or simulator game style for Enlisted? Like, why pick this question?
Микс настроек сложности, что касается техники. Но в основном у нас уже техника работает на реалистичной модели.
So the answer is that, of course, as we pick settings and vehicles from War Thunder from time to time, and we mix those settings to fit the playstyle of Enlisted, but those settings are usually closer to realistic or simulation ones, not arcade ones. So we think we are pretty much already on track, and we're fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Like, Enlisted is more realistic than arcade. The only arealistic thing about Enlisted is the way the perks work, but you could easily put that down to how different humans have different abilities, and then also the switching between people, which if you don't want that, you can go play Lone Wolf, so, already exists. Did he say on YouTube? Were they streaming on YouTube and taking questions from that chat too? So the way that they do it, Dixon, I don't know if they did it with Facebook this time, but normally when they stream on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, and they actually have this link which combines all of the different chats into one. So you can actually read all of the different chats at the same time, which is pretty cool. It means that you can follow all different strands. I actually went on one of the War Thunder streams like last year, I think it was, or the year before, with Sean and either Scarpa or Stoner. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a great time. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, they basically use a multi-feed thing, which is pretty interesting.
I guess the question here is really, is this a finished thing right now, how the vehicles behave, or are there going to be more refinements and maybe more features as well? For example, currently we have guns that we can assign to certain aircraft, but they do not work. So I presume we are planning on introducing those as well.
Smoke grenades.
Я не очень понял.
That would be cool.
Could you repeat the last sentence, please?
Of course. So in addition to the continued development of vehicles, one aspect, for example, that people have been asking is if we are planning to introduce gunners to aircraft that have the positions for them.
Да, отвечая на первую часть вопроса, будем ли мы дорабатывать текущую модель техники, да, определенно. Сейчас есть некоторые проблемы, о которых мы знаем, например, в ДМ, и там есть что доработать. Что касается...
Стрелки у нас будут.
Что касается второй части вопроса про стрелков, да, такое в планах есть. В принципе, я надеюсь, что мы в какое-то ближайшее время их добавим уже в игру.
So, answering to the first part of the question, yes, we understand there are still things to work on the battle vehicles we have, on the damage model, of course, which is not final, and some other tuning of how they behave, how they're controlled. So yes, vehicles would be developed more and would become more sophisticated and more interesting to play. And as answering to the second part of the question, for example, for the planes which had gunners, also the answer is yes, we are planning to add them in some pretty near future.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Like they're gonna keep pushing forward with making them, better. There's a few problems right now in Enlisted, and I don't know whether they covered it in this. Enlisted is supposed to be an infantry focused game, and already in basically its first month of release, people have and know now how to abuse the vehicles to annihilate the infantry. If you want some background on this, just to kind of show what I mean, if you have a look at the guys who got the most kills across the board for that competition that was last week, which they did insanely well. They got so many kills. The majority of them used automatic weapons and vehicles, mainly vehicles, to be able to do that. Mainly bombers with a ton of bombs and just annihilating over and over and over and over again. And once everybody gets these things unlocked, it's going to become a point where it's going to be really hard to play infantry, because infantry get absolutely smashed by these things. Once people figure out the meta and some of these vehicles and how to play them, it's going to be absolute hell playing infantry, especially against aircraft, because they don't have easy counters. So yeah, it's going to be a big issue going forward. I don't know how they're going to solve it, because it's just going to become another one of those games where playing infantry is going to be absolutely horrific, and I really don't want that to be the case. It's why I don't like the fact that they've added these bombers in the first place.
From It's Lubu asking, do you plan any campaigns outside of World War II, such as Vietnam or more modern conflicts? Or is it strictly going to be just World War II era battles in Enlisted?
В данный момент у нас настолько много осталось сделать по Второй мировой войне, что мы пока не планируем ничего другого. То есть пока мы смотрим только на то, что можно сделать внутри Второй мировой войны. Однако мы не отметаем эти идеи, и, возможно, в каком-то отдаленном будущем мы выйдем за рамки Второй мировой войны.
So the answer is that today we see such a full plate of working on the agenda of the Second World War that we are absolutely sure we'll have a lot of content to add from the Second World War without deviating from it. But of course, for some far future, we cannot exclude doing something else as well. But so far, our core focus is World War II.
So basically, wait 5 years. Just wait 5 years, and then it'll be all good. The anti-tank squads work really well against tanks, but a lot of people don't use it. I mean, certain ones do. The Battle of Moscow anti-tank gun for the Soviets works pretty well. The German one's trash. The Stern pistol's terrible, especially against stuff like the Jumbo. And the Piat's okay against Pumas, but it struggles against anything higher. The main issue is going to be planes. Tanks do have counters, mainly other tanks, but and explosive packs and getting around them because of their limited vision. Planes is going to be the real issue going forward.
Replay system in Enlisted, like we have in War Thunder, for example.
Why is it skipping?
We'll have a lot of content to add from the Second World War without deviating.
Yeah, talking about the the future stuff, I'm very happy they're focusing on the Second World War first. I don't want them to jump too early. I think when it comes to if they're going to go further, like, a lot of people have talked about Korea, Vietnam, because they're all American and they really like American conflicts and America, So I would really like them to focus on the Second World War, focus on even the minor fronts of the Second World War. A Greek campaign would be really cool. German paratroopers versus, the Greeks and the British. I think that would be awesome. There's obviously the whole Battle of Italy, Sicily in there as well. Southern France. They could even go back in time and go to the Spanish Civil War. That would be kind of interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of options, and I'm sure if the game gets really popular, they'll explore them just like War Thunder did.
from it. But of course, for some far future, we cannot exclude doing something else as well. But so far, our core focus is World War II.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent.
I see a question here by Blue Darfman in the chat who asks, will Enlisted ever have custom battles or private servers to play with your friends? And I would actually personally like to add something here which is, this question comes from a War Thunder player, of course. He knows the features in War Thunder. Are we going to see something similar to a replay system in Enlisted, like we have in War Thunder, for example?
Okay, so 2 questions basically about custom servers, custom rooms, and replay system.
Отвечая на первую часть вопроса про кастомные битвы, в данный момент у нас таких планов нет, но возможность есть, и, может быть, мы вернемся к этой идее чуть позже. То есть пока не является это приоритетной задачей.
So first part of the answer is that about custom rooms, custom servers, we are not currently focusing on it. Maybe we'll return to it in the future, but so far we don't see such an option.
Sad.
Что касается второй части.
So before we get into the next one, so the reason why stuff like custom battles is important, it's something I would really like to see, not just from like the, playing with your friends type of view, just, creating your own stuff. One of the key things about learning maps in any game is being able to go onto them, having a look around them, looking for positions, looking for areas to attack, looking for places to scout, looking for places to set up rally points, set up guns, where to mortar, all of these things, they're incredibly important. And by having custom battles, just like you do in a game like War Thunder, where in War Thunder, because you have these things, you are much more able to, you are much more able to understand the map and understand how the enemy attacks and where your allies go and react to it properly. It just means that the gameplay of the map, the actual knowledge of it increases, therefore it just gets better over time to play and people understand how to play it better. Without that, it just means that it's going to be a cluster for a very long time and there's going to be no tools for new players to be able to learn the maps themselves apart from YouTube videos. And YouTube videos are okay, but the problem with YouTube videos is, let's say they change the map. Now that video is outdated. And this is an issue I've run into when having a look at War Thunder maps. I have map analysis videos from 2015, 2016. And a lot of them are out of date because they've changed the map so much. So the custom thing is useful just to learn and for that extra knowledge base.
Момент есть в девелоперской версии, но понадобится достаточно много времени для того, чтобы доработать до финального варианта. То есть в планах у нас это есть, но не на ближайшее время.
So as far as replays go, we do have plans to bring them to the public usage, and we already have some replay system used internally for development process, but it still requires a lot of work and a lot of polishing to do so that players can use it comfortably. So it's more a midterm future, not the nearest future event. Also, I see one interesting.
Once again, annoying. Replays are not just good for content creation. Obviously they're useful for me because I can get screenshots or I can, once again, have a look around maps, which are very important to understand a bunch of things. But the major reason why replays are useful is to see what your enemies are doing, so therefore you can either replicate it or you can find a counter to it. It's once again another knowledge thing. And another thing on top of that knowledge thing is if you think somebody's cheating, right? If you feel like somebody's cheating, it's really nice to be able to check the replay to see if that person was pulling some ridiculous stuff, which is what we do in War Thunder, if it seems like something's a bit too good to be true. But unfortunately, you can't do that in Enlisted, so tough tits, I suppose.
Tactical elements of the game, more team communication, better engineer abilities, larger maps, and
SCMH.
other things where players could exercise tactics. So what about expanding tactics options?
Да, мы определенно смотрим в эту сторону и пытаемся как можно больше добавить тактического элемента в игру. Недавно, например, мы добавили, чтобы ники игроков показывались в отряде. Мы планируем улучшить то, как могут инженеры помогать команде, и то, как мы награждаем инженеров за помощь команде. Вот такие вещи.
Yes, we are interested in developing more tactic options for the game. So starting from simple things like adding the nicks of your friends who play together with you, so you could easily see on the map where they are, what they're doing, and help each other, and going into some more sophisticated options like engineers having more things to do in the battlefield, and we would even keep changing the way engineers are rewarded for their aid in the battle. So yes, tactics is also one of the focus for us to improve the feel of each battle for the players. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tom, do you have something there?
See, we do have a question here. Any chance we could get more people per battle for larger battles? And there was another question as well by Magnus, I believe, asking if we will get bigger maps as well in general.
So more people and bigger maps.
There's already like over 200. There's already over like 200 bots or people running around. We don't need bigger maps. Go away. Go play a different game. Fuck's sake.
Да, мы продолжаем экспериментировать с размером карт.
Like the invasion maps are huge. They're massive.
Стараясь увеличить их, но при этом мы хотим, чтобы наша игра оставалась максимально динамичной, то есть такой, как она есть сейчас. Поэтому при том, что мы рассматриваем самые разные сейчас способы, в том числе добавление новых режимов, и мы попробуем и сделать и больше карты, и, возможно, больше людей добавить, но с другой стороны мы пытаемся сохранить динамику и, ну, то есть в результате работы над этим ведутся, но каких-то конкретных обещаний пока я сделать не могу.
So on the map size, we are experimenting and we'll keep experimenting for a while with different map sizes, but including introducing new game modes which could utilize those different map sizes. But so far we are very much focused on keeping the battle dynamics high, so it would be the priority, and we would go into changing the size of used maps only if it doesn't hurt this dynamic feel of the fast battle. And that also actually answers the question about more people in the battle. So if we find the way to do it without damaging what we already have, we would experiment and see how it goes.
I don't want to play a walking simulator, especially since I already have an engineer that can build a rally point. So basically all you're doing is you're making it so I have to walk a bit further with my engineer. No, don't do that. Bad. The maps right now, they're completely fine how they are.
Yes, because
they're
basically,
a good size.
For those who are uninitiated to Enlisted, we do have a AI squadron system. Every player has a number of AI to follow them around, which add a lot of action to the gameplay. Even though we have a relatively small amount of players in the game, of course we have much more action because of the AI. This, of course, in the squadron mode, we do have a solo mode. Speaking on the maps, I saw an interesting question here by... let me quickly find it. Oh, I lost it. Yes, by C. Rodriguez. they ask, touching on the maps, do you plan to introduce destructible environments to the maps you already have, or maybe even new maps coming up in the future?
Levolution! Levolution! The Battlefield boys are out again.
So more
then
destructible environment.
Да. Сейчас у нас на самом деле такое уже есть. Например, в Нормандии можно разрушить кусок поврежденной стены, если бросить в него взрыв-пакет. Но да, мы очень давно хотим серьезно расширить эту часть нашей игры, в том числе сделав, чтобы часть объектов миссии заключалась в или была связана с разрушением каких-то объектов.
I guess so. The answer is yes. We already have some number of destructible objects on the maps, including, for example, in Normandy. Not all players know it. You can blow the wall where it's already a bit damaged, so you just have to use explosives for it. And yes, we would keep adding some destructible components to our maps.
Миссии.
I mean, fair enough. Like, I think the level of destruction is fine in Enlisted. I don't want houses being knocked down. I don't want a flat plane. The reason why I don't want a flat plane is mortars are already annoying to deal with, especially on invasion maps. Bombers are already annoying to deal with. I don't want a flattened terrain, so it's easier for them to just annihilate infantry. At least give some hard cover to the infantry so that you can actually play the game.
Sorry, to our missions, yeah. And those destructions could be part of the mission objectives. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool, actually. So basically Gold Rush from Battlefield.
That actually leads me to another point, somewhat related to
Toss
destruction.
the explosive packs.
Could we also see dynamic terrain deformation, for example, from bombs creating craters that infantry could use as cover, dynamically created throughout the map?
I like FPS. I'm good.
Технически у движка Enlisted есть возможность сделать нечто подобное, однако с точки зрения геймплея это довольно сложная задача. Как пример, допустим, кратер от воронки, точнее воронка от бомбы, может являться укрытием для пехоты, но с другой стороны может являться непреодолимым препятствием для танка. И сбросив несколько подобных бомб на респаун танка, можно просто сломать геймплей.
So basically, also about the dynamic terrain transforming. Theoretically and technically, our engine already provides such an option, and we could do that. But that poses a lot of difficulties from the gameplay standpoint, because, for example, if some explosion creates a crater, it is very good for infantry because they can cover in it, but it would be much more difficult for tanks to go through and could also hinder some other gameplay aspects. So we're still thinking whether we could really utilize this dynamic terrain transformation or not, and still no right answer for it.
I could definitely see some interesting stuff happening there. Right now, we already have some issues with tanks getting stuck in trenches, for example, and
yeah, fuck it. Let him get stuck. You know, if a tank driver is getting stuck in a trench, he's done something wrong. I don't. For me, the terrain deformation thing, gameplay wise, I don't think it would help infantry at all. Like, unless you made it incredibly deep, it would actually make it harder for them to push, because then they would just sit in a crater. The moment they pop out, they die. So you basically just have a situation where you favor the defenders again. It also means a mortar barrage would create a ridiculous amount of craters, and from that point, it would just make it very, very hard to attack.
Having the entire map full of holes would be interesting to say the least. I have a feeling most of the players who would not quite enjoy having that happen to their tanks.
Да, тут есть еще и другая сторона. Разрушение объектов могут, наоборот, сравнять уровень, оставив его, оставив пехоту без прикрытий просто.
Yeah, another thing is that if we introduce too much destruction on the map, it could happen that everything's been destroyed, so it's just a flat map where infantry has no cover at all. So doubt it will be an interesting fight.
That would be a problem.
И на самом деле такая проблема у нас уже была с артиллерией на ранних этапах разработки.
Yeah, actually, a good point is that on early stages of development, we already witnessed this problem with artillery. So that is why we had to be very careful with what can be actually destroyed on the maps. Actually, I saw one interesting question as well on Twitch. Sorry, didn't Mark asked it. That if we are going to have player versus encounter missions only, so without PvP aspect.
So PvE essentially, yeah?
Yeah, PvE, yeah.
В данный момент таких планов у нас нет, то есть мы фокусируемся
на
основных наших режима. Это режим
will we have a bot farm,
и
basically?
режим, где игроки играют без отряда. Но это интересная идея, и мы, скорее всего, вернемся к ней на поздних этапах разработки.
Okay, so far we are focusing on developing and tuning existing modes, which are squad modes and lone fighters modes, which both are PvPs. But that's an interesting actually point to think about, and we will think about maybe adding some PvE content later in the game development stage. So this is something to think about for sure.
I mean, sure, but the AI will never get to a point where it's useful enough unless you make it cheap by just headshotting people as it goes, which it already kind of does. But once players figure out the pattern of how to play it, then they'll just do that over and over and over again, and it'll just become a farming experience just like Armored Warfare, which is a game that has been on its last legs for like a year or two because the PvE stuff, it was easier to grind in the PvE zone instead of the PvP. So the PvP died, and then people left because guess what? It's not very fun to play PvE over and over and over again.
PvE just be multiple players in one squadron against the environment, or could it even extend to perhaps single player only?
It could literally be both. This question is pointless. They've already said they haven't, you know, they're in like the planning stage for stuff like that. Like it. Never mind.
Мы когда-нибудь сделаем подобное. Но на данный момент таких планов.
Yes, it is possible.
It's too early to say.
Yeah.
We don't have exact plans as of today. This is
There you
something
go.
to think about. But technically, all options are possible, so we'll consider them at a later time.
Okay, we have another question here from Blue Darthman 007. Are there any plans to add customization to infantry or tanks, such as different helmets or decals?
Да, определенно такие планы есть. Мы планируем добавить кастомизацию как для техники, для самолетов и танков, что включает в себя другие скины, что включает в себя декали, возможно, будет включать в себя декораторы, по крайней мере, для наземной техники. Но...
Продолжать, не закончил.
Да, окей. Это про технику. Про пехоту тоже есть планы кастомизации. В первую очередь мы собираемся сделать возможность рандомной кастомизации, то есть поменять внешность солдату случайно. Но вообще в планах есть более подробная кастомизация, в том числе там менять каски, навесить сигаретную пачку на каску, например, как у американцев часто делали. Ну, в общем, да, есть такие планы.
Okay, so basically we have many different ideas about improving customization options in the game. First of all, of course, we would have customization for vehicles where we could add different decoration options and decals. But also, of course, we're working on a system of adding some customization to infantry. and currently we're at the early stage of that process. So currently you can only change how your soldier looks randomly with random generator, but we plan to add more options to customize how your soldiers look, including changing maybe helmets or adding some decoration to them, like famous cigarette packs for US soldiers. So yes, we are working on different ideas about improving customization for that.
Let me change their names. Please. I want to have a name changer. Or at least a random generator. Please. Just have a profanity filter on it. If anybody breaks it, obviously ban them. Pretty simple. You know. But the thing is, it's really nice to see that this isn't obviously a priority for them, the customization stuff. A lot of customization, I feel like a lot of games nowadays focus way too much on the customization element way too early on, and you don't actually get a game. You get a glorified merchandise store for your characters in the game, and then the game dies pretty quickly. So the fact that they're doing gameplay first as a focus, campaigns and all the units and all that stuff, and customization is coming later, I'm very, very happy with. It's nice to hear about customization. It's not a big thing, but overall it's very good.
You touched on the vehicles as well. I saw a question here from the chat, which I'm sorry I forgot the name. They were asking if we were thinking of adding loadout customization of the tanks, for example, being able to select the shells that we want to take and how many of them, for example.
Yeah, I saw similar question about the planes as well.
Да, это сейчас есть в одних из ближайших наших планов добавить кастомизацию выбора снарядов техники.
Yes, and actually we
Evening,
plan to
Cletus.
introduce it in the nearest future.
We're having a look
so
at the
you will have
Q&A
an
for
option,
Enlisted.
to set up your load of shells and armor you take in game on tanks and aircraft.
Что включает в себя добавление новых...
Simple answer, simple question. That's good.
So, and we will add new types of ammo in the future.
Excellent. Okay.
Canister
Speaking of new
rounds,
types of
here we
ammo,
go.
would it by any chance include canister shells or shrapnel shells, especially for the early Russian tanks that used them?
Make tanks and vehicles better. That's what I want. Just make them take over the game. Fuck it. What is infantry? Who needs infantry? Who fucks about the main? Who gives a shit about main focus? I want my tank to blow everything up. Shit, man.
Я прямо сейчас не могу сказать по конкретике, но потому что оно требует тестирования. То есть те снаряды, которые по нашим внутренним тестам не будут ломать игру, будут добавлены. Ну, те снарядические снаряды, которые были у танков.
So first of all, we'll try to keep, of course, those ammunition being historical for the campaign used, and we will test it for.
I think the kill
not
cam
ruining the
enlisted is
gameplay,
fine.
because of course some kind of ammunition could seriously change how the battle.
Let you know if somebody's breaking the map or
We
not.
have positive answer for both questions. So the new armor is interesting, is historical, and not ruining the gameplay. Then yes, we will add them to the game.
Fair. This once again. I talked about the interesting production of this. So right now, the 30-minute mark, they play a video, but the sound doesn't get cut. So I'm gonna play you 5 seconds, and I'm gonna mute it. Otherwise, it's gonna blow your ears off.
Very well.
So yeah, I'll just do that real quick. Oh god. Remember, this is the official live stream. This isn't me editing it or anything. Like, goddamn, man. Okay.
From Warframe.
Nope, still going. Like, Come on.
планируем,
No. Still there.
конечно, и техники тоже.
Alright, fixed.
То есть, да,
Sorry,
мы
quick switch,
планируем добавлять
come
новые образцы. Единственное, что ожидать, что мы добавим всю технику в каждую из компаний, не стоит. Мы все-таки хотим ее распределить по разным компаниям.
So, yes, that's continuation to some of the previous answers that we are going to add content to campaigns, which includes adding more vehicles to campaigns. But of course, we are not going to bloat them with too much types of different vehicles. And
all I'm asking for, right? Like, okay, this is all I'm asking for. Okay, Bala Berlin, HU-177. Who's with me? Okay? I don't want the Soviets to be able to move an inch. I just want a copy on the map. Berlin, fuck it. B-29. Who's with me? Bala France, Farman. Let's get those videos out. B-17, Invasion of Normandy, sounds good to me. Let's go crazy. More vehicles. Fuck it. Oh, it's so annoying that this game is supposed to be infantry focused, but the majority of the questions are about the bloody vehicles. They're gonna just take over the game. And it's gonna be absolute hell to play. It's one of those scenarios once again where you have like, you know, the two steps, right? So you have like the 10% of people who are in the vehicles, and then you have the 90% of the vehicle who aren't in the vehicles. And the game is so much easier for that 10% of people in the vehicles, and they're able to just dictate the game so much that the 90% doesn't have fun. So either what the 90% tries to do is they try and become the 10%, which you can't do because there's a maximum amount of vehicles that you can have in a single game, and therefore they either just leave or they try their best to get in the vehicles over and over again. That's just what's going to happen. If you continue along this trend of adding more light bombers, more heavy bombers, you know, bigger tanks, stuff like that, nobody's going to want to play fucking infantry. Because it's already hell, right? Like, you guys have already seen it on stream with me where I've been using, like, the piddlers, like the Ju-87, and racked up stuff like 27 kills in one run. I've seen an A20 get 150 kills in a match, just going back and forth, just literally bombing the same area because it's the spawn. Like, you can't make that problem worse. Because if you make that worse, it's just gonna put off so many people. I'd actually advocate to remove the medium to heavy bombers. Just remove them from the game. Leave attackers with very limited bomb loads and fighters with very limited bomb loads.
we'll spread those among different campaigns and different historical periods. How to keep everything balanced.
So just have to add to the chat here, if I can just quickly interject. Sorry, chat. My question was if we were going to add more vehicles and different vehicles up to the campaign. I played a trailer by mistake.
Yeah, they already answered that question. Are we going to add new content to the game? Da.
Sorry, continue.
Я хотел ответить на вторую часть вопроса про добавление новых типов техники. Да, такие планы тоже есть, но тут зависит уже от того.
A tiny bit of the problem is people don't build spawn points, so you can get loads of kills in a spawn area. I mean, that's true, but also you got to remember that bombs destroy spawn beacons. So if the bomb radius is big enough, it'll just destroy the spawn beacon. Like many of my spawn beacons have been destroyed by like the BF-110 rockets and shit like that, just because the blast of them is so big. It's really annoying. Part of how dominant vehicles are come down to people not marking targets and infantry not getting their historical counters to vehicles. You don't have a counter to an A10 on the ground, apart from a quad 20, which is very, very hard to use. You need to get into a fighter, and if you don't have that unlocked, you just die.
Что это за тип техники? Например...
It's the War Thunder problem again, rock, paper, scissors, right? Like you can spawn in an AA at the start of a battle, like, you know, 10 times, and then maybe 3 of those times there's like a helicopter set, and you nuke them very quickly, and you feel great. But the other 7 times there's no helicopters, so you just sat there like twiddling your thumbs. Like if you spawn in a fighter first spawn, right? First of all, you're taking away that spot from something that might be more useful, and second of all, what if they don't spawn a bomber? It's the whole issue with the whole thing. It's the whole issue with rock paper scissors gameplay and not being able to react quick enough.
Ездящие зенитные установки, такие планы есть. А большие бомбардировщики мы пока не планируем добавлять. По крайней мере, если мы говорим о такой технике под управлением игроками.
Okay, so the second part of the question was about adding new vehicle types to the game. So here we'll be pretty careful. For example, we can imagine adding anti-aircraft guns.
Fuck it, let's go. World win time. Kutu, let's go. But yeah, obviously that'll be a bit dumb, because no one would use them for AA, they'd use them for AP.
To the game, anti-aircraft vehicles to the game. But for example, as for heavy bombers, now it would most probably seriously change the experience, and we are not going to do it. So we'll be careful about adding new types of vehicles, but we will consider some of them. And actually, I see one question
One of the things that's really interesting is if you actually have a look at one of the things that's kind of interesting is if you look in the files of Enlisted, they've added a ton of turretless tank destroyers. So stuff like Su-85s and Jagdpanzers and things like that. I have no idea who is ever going to use them compared to an actual tank. But it is kind of funny thinking that, you know, people would do that. Same with like stuff like the M10. Why would you ever use an M10 over something else? Like, I don't know. Seems odd to me.
Constantly repeated in different forms. So now the Cool Sage 999 asked about whether we are going to provide some rewards for supportive behavior in the battle when people are marking enemies or doing something else which helps other people to fight.
Начать нужно с того, что на данный момент мы уже поощряем некоторые подобные действия. Например, помощь в уничтожении техники и пехоты. Мы поощряем постройку респаун-точек, если на ней спавнятся игроки. Что касается расширения этой системы, да, такие планы есть. Как я затрагивал ранее, например, мы собираемся расширить награды за постройку каких-то объектов, если они пригодились в бою. То есть если кто-то убивает из построенного пулемета солдат, то инженеру начисляются очки. Если кто-то наступил в колючку из врагов, инженеру начисляются очки, какие-то такие вещи.
А за, например, отмечание врагов, которых потом кто-то убил?
С отмечанием врагов немножко сложнее, потому что мы не хотим, чтобы метками врагов спамили. То есть мы не хотим, чтобы этого было слишком много. Но, например, отмечание техники, да, вероятно.
So, as for general improvement of the system for rewarding cooperative gameplay, we are working on it, and we're constantly adding something. For example, for engineers, if they build mobile respawn point and people use it to respawn, they get reward. If engineer, so we're going to add some more incentives, like for example, if engineer builds machine gun nest and somebody kills enemy from that machine gun, that would also give some additional benefits to engineer. If engineer builds barbed wire,
hopefully everything's
enemies are damaged on it, so that also gives some points to engineer. So yes, we are working on expanding and tuning the system. But for example, as for rewarding marking enemy for somebody else to kill it, Well, here we are going to be a bit cautious since we don't want all the players just spawning marks on the map and thus also somehow damaging the gameplay feel.
Yeah, obviously, you got to be careful with supportive XP, basically, or supportive rewards. I think they should be added in some forms. I think personally, they should have a look at the fact that tanks get a ridiculous amount of assists by basically waggling their gun around. I think that's definitely a problem and should be looked into. Or maybe you give assists to other vehicles or other infantry members for being near an enemy or engaging an enemy while another enemy or another ally kills them. It's definitely something to look into. We'll have to see what they decide to do with it.
That's actually really interesting. That's something that people have been asking for a while, and I personally am looking forward to it myself because I love playing the engineer class.
Yes, you do.
Amazingly useful.
Awesome.
One question that
Это
we've been
один из
having...
моих
Sorry.
любимых классов тоже.
The engineer is the most broken unit in the game. By broken, I mean the best. Its utility is insanely good. Battles are won and lost on how people use engineers.
Yeah, so everybody likes engineer but me, okay.
Sorry, Alexander, you're one left out.
No problem. I prefer machine gunners.
Yes.
Well, that's why you can get the engineer class as well to build the MG42 position, which is
There you go.
very, very useful. All right, I have one question here that has been asked quite a bit. We've been doing some teasers of this, but will Enlisted feature some form of ray tracing in the future?
Вопрос не совсем, конечно, по адресу, но да. Насколько я знаю, есть планы.
Ray tracing.
Well, actually, it's not the best question to ask Sergey, as he is not a tech guy who is writing the code for the game. But as far as he's aware,
He's the
yes,
brains,
there
not
are
the
some plans
brawn.
to add ray tracing to Enlisted. So let's hope.
The game already looks pretty good, but with ray tracing, this might actually be really, really, really quite interesting. I can't wait to... Well,
And we have global illumination.
global illumination, there we go.
Wonderful.
Tom, have you seen a question over there?
Yeah, there was a question I saw a while ago. I can't remember your name, apologies. But the question was on the lines of, do you plan on keeping all customization historical? Or are there plans to add ahistorical cosmetics to infantry and tanks and planes and such?
Да. Косметику мы планируем добавлять историческую, и тут ко мне пришел код.
Oh, hold on, I need to show this on stream. Oh, sorry, can you show that again?
Да. Косметику мы планируем добавлять историческую, но понятно, что до определенного момента. То есть какие-то совсем не исторические вещи, типа панковских ирокезов, в игре увидеть будет нельзя. Также нельзя будет собрать из отряда банду головорезов. То есть этого мы позволять не хотим. Но при этом мы также хотим это ограничить немного с другой стороны. То есть
Sorry. What the hell is that? Sounds fun.
условно говоря, если на исторических фотографиях на этом отряде у солдат на касках не было пачек с сигаретами, то, наверное, это нас не остановит, чтобы дать возможность игрокам это настроить. Просто потому что если подходить настолько жестко к кастомизации, то не факт, что и вообще имеет смысл делать. Просто потому что игроков не особенно останется выбор.
So, we do plan, of course, to expand different cosmetic options for the infantry to make people be able to stand off in the fight. But here we'll try not to exceed some certain point of balance, certain point of common sense. For example, we are not going to allow punk Irokез hairstyle or some different maybe color to the hair, or we would not allow players to assemble a squad of very, very different style of soldiers, so that would look like a mercenary band. So that is not going to happen. But on the other hand, we are not going to be too strict about exact historical look of each squad. So for example, if some squad at a certain period didn't have cosmetics like packs of cigarettes attached to helmets or playing cards, but we know that it could be somewhere there, so we can allow it to the players, because if we try to be too historical, if we try to stick to every historical looking button at the shirt, well, then it's pretty much closes any option for cosmetics to be added. So we are going to add cosmetics, and we are going to add them reasonable way so that it doesn't create some crazy environment. But there will be different options to customize your soldiers.
Well, damn, there goes my dream of running around with a prosthetic arm. Disappointment.
Of your own prosthetic arm or enemy's one?
Well, why not both? I mean, we can blow off all the limbs of the enemy soldiers. Maybe we can pick them up ourselves and be...
What would be nice is if they do what they do in War Thunder, where you have fictional, semi-historical, and historical. So basically, you have like 3 stages, and then in the options, you can turn it to whatever you want. This basically means that they could add in full customization of stuff, but it is up to the player to turn it on or off. So people can make their stuff look how they want, but don't have to deal with the gameplay implications. I think War Thunder has the system down really well, and I hope Enlisted adopts it.
That could go to cursed, so another.
Yes. I see a question here by Hans the Flamer, who's... This has been a question that's actually been asked a lot. Currently, Enlisted is available, of course, on PC, on PS5, and Xbox Series S and X, but it's, at least on PC, it's only available through our own launcher on the Enlisted website, which, by the way, not plugging it all, you can download for free right now down below. Are we having any plans of perhaps adding Enlisted as well to Steam, like we have War Thunder, for example?
На данный момент таких планов нет. Пока что мы довольны нашей платформой. Остальные платформы, у них есть минус. Сложнее доносить до них патчи, сложнее поддерживать игроков, то есть техподдержка сложнее. Поэтому на данный момент мы не рассматриваем такие возможности.
So no, currently we do not have such plans to add our game to Steam or Epic Launcher or any other third-party platform, because that also hinders somehow our ability to ensure player support, that somehow hinders our ability for timely patches and updates. So far we are going to stick with existing model of installing game from our own launcher.
It's kind of interesting, because obviously being on stuff like Steam or Epic Games, it opens you up to a bigger market, you know? I'm guessing maybe in the future, when the development's a bit more streamlined, obviously it's quite streamlined right now with the way that they're talking about it, like with their plans and stuff, but I mean, once the game is maybe the 4 campaigns and OBT, maybe that's when it makes the move. I would be incredibly surprised if in the whole of Enlisted's lifetime, the only place you'll be able to get it is on the Enlisted website. I mean, technically a lot of companies have been making their own launches recently over the last few years. I would be incredibly surprised if we don't see a Gaijin launcher with all their games on it that, you know, you can just play through.
So there you go. If you want to play Enlisted, make sure you go to the Enlisted website and download the game from there. Tom, have you something over there?
Yeah, there's another question. I tried copying it, but missed the name. Apologies. And so, In terms of the weaponry available for the game in the future, is it? Are we excluding the ability to add maybe weapons that are more prototypes or test runs of weapons? Or
there's already prototypes of the game. The game is filled with them. Oh, help me.
Type designs from Enlisted in the future.
Полностью мы их не исключаем. Мы хотим добавить в игру как можно больше разных образцов оружия и техники, что включает в себя редкие образцы оружия и техники. Но при этом мы собираемся сделать так, чтобы все редкие образцы оружия и техники не могли встречаться на поле боя часто.
So basically, we do not exclude an option of adding some of the prototype guns to the game. But of course, we want to ensure that they are not met in the game too frequently. So they will be most probably added to some special squads or other less encountered type.
One of the Battle Pass guns, is it the Schneider or whatever it's called? I'll have to have a look. The Schneider was a one-off gun. Like, they're already adding these guns in. I don't understand I understand they probably don't want to make them like all over the place, but they already exist. So why is this matter? Yeah, there we go, Enlisted Battle Pass. This is the article. So yeah, the Schmeiser Mark 36-3 SMG, this one. Like, it was designed in 1936, and I'm pretty sure the MK or the Mark 36 or MK36-3 was built in prototype form only and was blocked from entering production. So you already have these. Like, just be like, yeah, we're fine with prototype vehicles, prototype guns, as long as they fit the game balance-wise and there's enough information about them. Like, you don't have to dance around this. It wasn't limited to production. It was never put into production, because it got blocked from being put into production. The Schmeiser never went into production. They made one Mark III. That was it, I believe.
Of infantry, so that more or less the game remains historical, and prototypes is more an exclusion than a rule.
Excellent.
So I presume we could see those in like a very limited capacity, for example, as especially ward squadrons or more premium squadrons like the ones we have. For example, the M2 Height is actually a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the guns in the
exactly.
Battle Pass.
Yes. Why did you ask that question then?
The chat's actually going really quickly right now. Give me a second.
Oh.
So actually, I see one interesting question from Relic Master about...
That question was literally, are you going to add stuff that have already been added to the game? Yes. Like, mate.
The artificial intelligence controlling equipment, like for example bombers targeting tanks with gunners, or engineers building some important engineered structures on themselves without direct order from the player, or soldiers using explosives against the tanks. So will there be more actions from artificial intelligence without player being directly involved in it?
Мы постоянно дорабатываем наш искусственный интеллект солдат. И да, мы планируем расширить в том числе то, как они реагируют на самые разные вещи, происходящие в бою.
So basically, yes, we keep working on our artificial intelligence, and we'll keep adding more functions artificial intelligence may carry in the game.
Very well. Actually, I'd like to add on to that, because it's something that players don't quite realize. currently, if you have a squadron of engineers, you can actually order them to help you in buildings. It's something I like doing myself, especially one of the longer time to build buildings like the spawn points or the AE vehicles. You can order them to help build alongside you, or even order them to finish the building whilst you start building something else. Okay, I think... Sorry, what?
Yeah. No, just that, yes, correctly. So they are working along these lines, and there will be some additions in the future of different options.
Excellent.
I see a question here that Blue Dart has been repeating a lot. Will there be options to put bayonets on weapons that accept bayonets? We do already have, of course, bayonets in the game that have been now released with the Battle of Berlin CBT. But could we perhaps see bayonets in other campaigns or even added to the weapons we already have available?
Yes.
So actually, it means two different questions. First, whether we're going to add more weapons with bayonets, and second, if we are going to add bayonets as an option for already existing gun.
Exactly.
Да, на оба вопроса. Пока мы тестируем байонеты, они останутся исключительно в Берлине. Как только мы решим, что мы достаточно их протестировали и не готовы для остальных компаний, мы начнем потихоньку добавлять их на старое оружие. То есть такая опция появится на том оружии, на котором это исторически было.
So basically, yes, currently we are testing bayonets on Berlin campaign, and for a while it will remain there. But when we are satisfied with this testing, we are planning to extend bayonet options also to existing guns, and there will be option to have them in different parts of the game.
I wonder what other attachments they're going to do actually when it comes to that, because the way that it is in Battle of Berlin, there are certain guns, such as one of the Mosins, I believe, which has the bayonet always attached, so you can't remove it. But something like the submachine gun, which I can't remember the name of, is it the PPSH or the PPD, the ZS, whatever the hell? That one actually has it kind of detachable in a little attachment zone. So I'm wondering if they're going to add different attachments for different guns, which would be interesting to see.
Tom, do you have something to add?
Let's have a look.
Actually, sorry if I may, I saw a question on YouTube.
Unlucky Oxy. Maybe next time.
I think about whether we are going to allow players to choose a preferred game modes. I see that this question quite often is repeated also.
They're doing my boy Oxy dirty.
Я так понимаю, что речь идет о каком-то разделении между нашим режимом захвата и остальными режимами, потому что они действительно довольно сильно друг от друга отличаются. Изначально мы планировали делать их двумя разными режимами, чтобы игроки могли выбирать, в какой режим они встают в очередь. Но в какой-то момент разработки мы поняли, что у нас достаточное количество игроков не готовы играть с отрядами из ботов, насколько бы мы их не улучшали. В этот момент мы приняли решение разделить те режимы, два, которые у нас есть, выделив отдельный режим без ботов.
So I'll start translating. Basically, initially we did have plans to allow players to choose game mode types, but then, as we were deep in development, we realized that not all the players would be happy with playing the squad modes with artificial intelligence soldiers in them, however great we can polish them. But anyway, so a decision was made to add two basic selections, like playing in squads and playing in Lone Star modes you see now. And that means...
Да, соответственно, сейчас мы получаем ситуацию, когда у нас уже есть два режима, и разделение еще на два, мы пока на это не готовы пойти. потому что это еще сильнее раздробит нашу аудиторию. При этом у нас есть идеи, как это сделать по-другому. Например, мы рассматриваем сейчас вариант, когда игроки смогут указывать, какие режимы и, возможно, даже отдельные миссии им нравятся, и при сборе игроков в бой матчмейкинг сможет смотреть на то, какие преференции выбрали игроки, и исходя из этого, например, если все игроки хотят играть в одну и ту же миссию, то она будет просто встречаться чаще.
Okay. So introducing squads and lone stars meant that we cannot actually split lobbies into more fractions. So if we would add more mode selection, that would mean that we could lose some of the audience or make waiting times too long. So we decided to leave that idea out. But since we understand that some of the players...
One note about this, I would really like somebody to ask if there is... Because I still haven't had a load time which is longer than a minute. I've had 56 seconds, and when it never gets to the minute mark, and it throws me into a game every time. I'm wondering if there's a hard cutoff when it comes to a minute for the queue time. Because no matter what I play, it always gets to that 50 to 55, and then smashes me into a battle, no matter what.
Do have their own preferences. They may have favorite game modes, or they may even have some preferable or favorite missions to play. So we would introduce a system where players could mark things they prefer, and then during matchmaking, the system would choose. So if lobby has many players with similar preferences, then those missions or those types of missions would appear for them more often than others. So we will keep tuning that players be more happy with what they get when they enter the battle. Thanks.
Interesting. Thank you much for the information on that. Tom?
Excellent.
Did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. That was brilliant.
Okay.
My boy, Tom.
Here's actually something that's been quite interesting. So currently in Enlisted, we have a bunch of, apart from just the tanks, we do have a bunch of, so to speak, it's not really civilian vehicles. I mean, they are army trucks. But I've seen personally on some of the maps, we have some tractor models, for example. And I saw a question here by Tuga something bunch of numbers in the chat. You guys really need to get some better usernames. Could we see perhaps more different types of civilian vehicles, like actual just cars that we could use as players? Perhaps even the tractor.
I want a medic truck that I could bomb. How about that? Let's do it. Go crazy.
Just so we find it more.
Да, мы хотим расширить парк техники, которая просто стоит на локации, и их можно использовать. В том числе у нас есть планы не ограничиваться наземной техникой, но оно при этом не является какой-то очень приоритетной сейчас для нас задачей, поэтому мы будем расширять, но, возможно, не настолько быстро.
Okay, so yes, we are planning and we're working on increasing amount of different civil or other transportation kind of vehicles which players can control in the missions, and we are not limited here only to ground vehicles only. But this task is not the highest priority currently in development, so most probably would be realized a bit later.
Just to expand there a bit, just give me a second.
Sure.
You mean not only ground vehicles, does it mean boats, perhaps? Or thinking of other things there?
Maybe.
Okay, very good. You want to go?
I see one question repeated, sorry, about esports in Enlisted. So are we having some plans or ideas about creating esports environment?
How? What? Is there... Oh my god. Why do we have to placate esports? Why can't we just let it go over there and just pat it on the head, you know? You know, this game isn't CSGO, this isn't League. It's not gonna work as an esport. Like, fuck me. What do you even do in an esports setting here? I mean, I was actually thinking about this the other day when we watched this. The only thing I can think of doing is you basically do what like Overwatch does, where you know how they push the cart, but instead what you do is you do an invasion map for Enlisted and see how long it takes one side to win it or not win it, or how far they get in a certain time limit, and then the other side gets to go as well. So yeah, pretty much as simple as that.
Сейчас, в данный момент, мы в первую очередь сфокусированы на том, чтобы чинить разные ошибки в игре и добавить больше контента. E-спорт является для нас определенной целью, но вот не прямо в ближайший момент.
So basically, currently we are very busy with polishing, fixing, and improving what we currently have and developing the game. So esports may come later, but currently it's not on the core focus of the team.
Thank fuck. Esports is not something you should really focus on like as a team. Esports is one of those things that comes from the community and then builds up. Like the initial interest has to be there from the community point of view, and I have not seen any interest in Enlisted esports from everywhere. And I've been checking all the Russian places as well, you know, for what they're talking about, and also all the other foreign language places. I don't think anybody has like mentioned esports more than maybe a handful of times compared to everything else. Like it shouldn't even be a question which is worth asking at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are about reaching our time schedules for today. We, of course, don't want to hold you up too long. We have much work to do with Enlisted during this very excited weekend. So I want to thank you again for coming along. Alexander, Sergey, thank you much for tuning in for the Q&A and answering some of the questions. And once again, chat, this has been Sergey Kolkanov, the lead designer of Enlisted and lead producer, of course, as well. And Alexander Tolkash helping us with some of the translations.
So there you go. That is the interview overall. Then they go into just playing the game a bit. So when it comes to the Q&A, I'm really happy they did this. I think it's awesome that they did this. I hope they do more. You know, it's always nice when we get these types of things. When it comes to game development, I feel like the first half of it was pretty good. The second half of it, there was a lot of questions which were either kind of mirrors of the first part, or questions which are a little bit all over the place, right? Like, which aren't too useful. The main thing is they are, you know, working on the 4 campaigns. They have plans for future stuff. You know, they're not being short-sighted. They're just going forward and having a little bit of fun and all of that good stuff. So overall, very positive they did this. Hopefully next time they do this, it'll be a little bit better produced, a little bit more formal. But we'll have to see from there what happens.